Hi, and welcome to Amy's Opinions. Today I'm joined by my daughter Maggie and my friend Jocelyn, and we are going to be talking about dress codes in grades K through 12 and how we feel about it and how it's different from when it was when I was a child and Jocelyn was a child compared to what Maggie just went through as a recent graduate from high school and Jocelyn's child who's in fifth grade is going through. All right, so Maggie, I know you wrote a paper on this last year for your senior project. Do you want to start off by giving us your opinions? And again, this is just an opinion show. Nothing's really factual. It's just a bunch of women talking about opinions. So, Maggie, why don't you give us some background, give us your opinion?
So, throughout my research, which helped formulate my opinion was I think that uniforms would be better for schools rather than just a single dress code. And the only reason why I say that is because a lot of times with certain dress codes, it seems like it's targeting more towards a specific gender. And even in some extreme cases, there's a lot of racial bias too with dress codes. Like I know some students, they get sent home because of their hair or, they're telling young girls too, like, hey, you have to keep your shoulders covered because you'll distract the male students in your class. But if students were told that there's a uniform that you have to wear, then the only reason why you would be dress coded would be just because you broke uniform regulation.
Okay.
And it wouldn't be as targeted, in my opinion.
So, you've gone to school with both school uniforms and dress code policies. What do you prefer?
Like at the time I hated it, but looking back, I would say the uniform school just because one, it was easier. Everyone had the same outfit every day. So, there wasn't going to be that bullying if some kids couldn't afford like the newest clothes and items. And two, it made it easier when you were getting up. You didn't have to think as much about your outfit because it was just going to be the same thing again.
Okay. Jocelyn, what about you? Have you experienced school uniforms?
Well, when we was growing up, we just had the dress code policy. But as far as my son, yes, school uniform. And it is more convenient, the school uniforms. So we knew exactly, what we was going to wear. But even the school uniforms, they had different styles. Some of the girls, had the regular shirts, but then some of them had ruffles on them. And the guy shirts was cut a little different. So you did have a little bit of individuality on it. You could spice it up a little bit. But my son is only in the fifth grade. Uniforms, yes, it was an easy morning. We didn't have to go hunting for stuff, so we knew exactly what he was going to wear. And then, like I said, we could spice it up a little bit with a different style shirt. Instead of the classic like straight leg pants. We might do some cargos that was still within the dress code policy or the uniform policy. But yeah, I really did enjoy those. And then, like you
No.
said, everyone looks the same. Nobody didn't have on polo compared to a roses shirt. And then, the kid would get picked on because, kids can be cruel.
They can because I grew up. I don't know about you, but I never had school uniforms.
Yeah.
Back when I was a kid, you only had school uniforms if you went to private school. And that was the only time you had school uniforms. And I know from looking at my pictures and watching my kids dress for school outside of school uniforms, there's some atrocious combinations that happen.
That's right.
Like a pink sparkly hat and an orange shirt with hot pink skirt. I mean,
No,
I
it was
remember
the
that.
pink sparkly hat, neon green dress, and the high tops.
Yep, I remember that one too.
Sound like Punky Brewster. Y'all remember her?
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't think Maggie, you don't know who Punky Brewster is, do you?
Oh my
No.
goodness, you're
Look
gonna
it
have to
up.
Google her.
Look it up. The side ponies,
Yeah,
the big hair in the 80s, which I hit the tail end of because my sisters were hardcore 80s and they used to use me as a test dummy
that's right.
to do their hair. I used to have burns all across my forehead
No.
just from them trying to curl my hair,
Mhm.
which is probably why I don't do my hair very often anymore. I just kind of put it up and go because my sisters destroyed that.
That's right.
But as far as kids picking on kids, some of that is the stuff that kids choose to wear.
Correct.
I remember in middle school getting the MC Hammer pants that were so cool at the time, the parachute pants. I didn't realize I got my pants out of the boys department because it was buttoned up right next to the
Oh,
girls
man.
department. And I went to school wearing the same pair of pants, neon or hot orange, neon orange,
Mhm.
that a boy in my classroom had on too.
Okay. Y'all were twinsies that day.
Evidently. It's not that funny, Maggie. You know how cruel middle school kids are?
Yeah, which is why when I was in middle school, for like 3 years, I was glad that we had uniforms.
And I think that's appropriate. I think when kids are little and they're learning how to dress themselves and they're getting their own sense of style, like K through 5, I think they should be allowed to dress with a dress code policy. T-shirts, nothing low cut, nothing that, pants that shorts that don't go above their middle finger, it has to be longer than their middle finger. I think that's appropriate for school because I think that's when kids learn how to be independent of their parents and how to really develop their own sense of style. But when kids get to middle school, that's when kids can be really mean.
That's right.
I think a dress code during middle school is appropriate. I think it'd be appropriate, for a dress uniform for middle school, not so much high school when they're getting ready to go out and learn how to be dress appropriately for a job, but maybe because sometimes, these kids look at what's on TV and think they have to dress like that, and that's not necessarily appropriate for school.
That's right.
So I'm kind of in the belief that if you're going to have a school uniform, starting middle school through high school would be appropriate. That way we don't have these distractions. Bodies are changing, hormones are coming out, and then we don't have an excuse for misbehavior.
That's right.
Because I honestly think the way people dress gives other people an excuse to treat them badly, whether it's making fun of them, whether it's sexual harassment, any of that.
That's right.
I mean, that's my belief. What about you, Jocelyn?
Well, yeah, because in
What do you
high school, we had the dress code, the wide straps. I remember I got sent home because of a spaghetti strap one time, and that it was unacceptable. But these days, I also, after I graduated high school, I was a substitute teacher, and I did high school, and this was, I say, 2002. Even back then, when I was substitute teaching, they had on these little shirts and were starting to wear the little crop tops and had belly rings. I'm like, oh no, I could never get away with that when I was in high school. You'll get sent straight home, and right, and the sexual harassment, and if you watch the news, some of the teachers was influenced by the younger children and was having relationships with them behind, so a lot of stuff can go on. But if you either have to stick to the strict dress code or do the uniforms. Okay, I understand it was inappropriate. I tried to get away with it. I didn't get away with it. Send me home and make me change. Okay, I agree with that. But just having a dress code, hey, just as long as you're in school and you're learning and you're doing your work, no, because the work is not getting done and the students are not learning because, like you said, they are distracted.
Now, Maggie, I know you have a slightly different opinion about this because you have a different shape than, say, your sister or I did growing up. What are your thoughts about dress code policies based on a certain body style that may be appropriate for someone that may be curvier than someone that may not be as well developed?
Well, what I noticed at school was the more curvy a girl was, the more likely she was to be dress coded for wearing the same outfit that somebody who wasn't as curvy was wearing.
Now, with
And
that, I have a question.
it would, like, both would be wearing crop tops and stuff,
But
but
were they wearing the same size or was she wearing a size appropriate for her shape?
size appropriate for her shape. So it wasn't the same size, it was the size that was appropriate for her. But because she had a curvier body type, the school would still dress code her and say, oh, well, you're distracting other students.
So is
And
that
like,
fair?
That is not fair.
no.
So do you think if the school would have had a uniform versus a dress code policy, that would have eliminated that?
Yes, I do. Like, you would still get the kids who would try to break the uniform, but it would be less likely that the school would punish you based on a certain outfit by saying that you're distracting other students. Because if you all are dressed the same, well, then if what I'm wearing is distracting other people, then wouldn't that mean that what they're wearing is also a distraction if we're all wearing the same outfit?
Okay, I have another question. Do you think dress code policies are sexist because they're aimed more at female students than male students?
In some ways, yeah. Like, if you look at some of their wording and even like how like they're carried out depending on the sexes, it can be pretty sexist. Like, our rule was we couldn't have shorts like more than like 2 inches above our knee, I believe it was, an inch or 2 inches. And the girls, they would be dress coded for that, but the boys, they wouldn't.
So boys would wear really short shorts?
Yeah, they
Really?
would be exercise shorts, but still shorter than what was allowed by the dress code, and they would get away with it.
Okay, all I'm thinking is your grandpa in the 80s wearing his short running shorts. Are we talking like those shorter shorts?
A little bit longer than that,
Oh,
but
thank God. Okay. All right. And do you think that goes back to a patriarchal society versus a matriarchal society?
yeah. Because even if you look at it historically, different parts of women's bodies have been sexualized. Like at one point in history, it was scandalous to show your ankle,
That's right.
whereas in another time in history, you couldn't show off your cleavage, you know? Like it was very much in patriarchal societies, it seems like they almost choose different during depending on the time period, different parts of the body to sexualize,
Okay.
and you're expected to cover up those bodies. Like I know one of the main things I heard even in elementary school for girls was, you know, you couldn't really wear off the shoulders tops because you would distract the boys in your class. So why are we telling 9-year-olds that they're distracting the boys in their class if their shoulders are exposed on a hot day?
Well, maybe it's because 9-year-old boys can be little jerks and they would go and try to yank the rest of the shirt off.
No, like it would just be something that they could even just pull with the style of shirt, just pull it up and they would still get dress coded for that.
Okay. What do you think,
You can
Jocelyn?
still pull it up. So one of those ruffle shirts that you can pull up, you can wear multi-way.
Yeah.
Mhm. Do you think that dress codes are more focused on the female population than the male population?
Yes, because we have more to admire. We have
Okay.
more to admire than the fellas. So when you think about the male anatomy, women, what we see about the man that we admire is the muscles, the arms, the eyes, and all that other good stuff, right? So it's mostly like the upper body. But women, we have head to toe beauty. And guys, they look at us head to toe and they can pick out anything. So just like she said, and that makes me think, some people love ankles, some people love knees, some people love shoulders. You know what I mean? And we have round, beautiful, soft shoulders, our skin soft and we're glistening. So yeah, so men do admire a woman totally from the head to the toe. Different body parts can excite anybody, you know what I mean? But in high school, I'm not for sure like what age, from the Erickson's thing, what age all of that start. But like she said, the 9-year-olds. So my son is 11, so I can go off of my son that's 11. Right now, he's not interested in females. My son is still a Fortnite, Roblox type of guy, basketball type of guy. But when I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and you scrolling and you see some of these kids, they at 8 years old and 9 year old, like she said, they are admiring women and girls. Ooh, I got a girlfriend. I like her, and things like that. So how do you protect? How do you protect?
I think that comes from the parents because, like Lewis, and Lewis is my oldest son, Jocelyn and Maggie. Well, Maggie, you know him because your brother,
Yeah.
Jocelyn knows him. But he had a girlfriend who he proposed to. He went and asked,
Wow.
her daddy's
All
permission
right now.
right before he started kindergarten,
Kindergarten,
and
5, 6 years old.
yeah.
Okay.
And he went across the street and he asked his girlfriend's dad, and his dad said no. He came back crying, and his little girlfriend told his dad that nope, she was going to marry Lewis no matter what, and they were going to live with him, and Lewis is going to play video games, and his mom was going to cook for him, and they had this all worked out. So some of that, I think that's innocent. That's
Yeah.
little kids. And Lewis always managed to have a girlfriend. Even in daycare, he would have little girls. They had to separate him from the little girls' table because they were feeding him food.
My goodness.
So this is Lewis until he hit about second grade, and he had these little girls doing his math homework for him. And we didn't know that. And his current girlfriend had said, no, my parents said I have to stop doing this for you.
Right.
So he wrote to her best friend, hey, if I break up with my girlfriend, will you be my girlfriend? Well, then these little girls in the whole class turned on him appropriately. Because
Wait, we're
that was
talking about
a
Lewis,
move.
your son Lewis.
My son Lewis.
I would never look at him the same, but okay, go ahead. This is good.
So this is what he did. So then, since then he's been kind of a little bit afraid because in elementary school when he pulled this move, which was kind of a dirtbag
That's
move.
right.
But again, he wasn't thinking. He was just thinking, well, she's not going to do my homework, so I'll make this one my girlfriend. They'll do my homework. That's what he was thinking, and it turned on him.
Well, he had an ulterior motive. He
He did.
wanted to date anybody that would help him out.
And when he told us about it, we told him he was in the wrong and that was the wrong thing to do. So then, he's been a little bit upset. So when you're talking about like 9-year-old kids, I don't think it's necessarily sexual as more as kind of innocent. Hey, this is cool. Hey, I see this on TV. They have boyfriends, girlfriends, and some of it, sometimes the girls are a little pushy with the boys. Hey, you want
Yeah.
to be my Valentine, like, that sort of a thing.
Give me.
So I don't think it I don't think it gets sexualized until they hit puberty. I think puberty and those hormones is what changes it from
Innocent.
innocent to now we need to protect everyone and we need to go to dress codes. Or not dress codes, but maybe dress uniforms, school
Yeah.
uniforms. Because then instead of looking at and puberty happens earlier because all the hormones
Yep.
in the food.
That's right.
So, I think middle school around 10 or 11 because it hits kids differently at different times. I think that's appropriate to introduce the school uniform
Mm-hmm.
and especially getting rid of those baggy pants. Because remember when we were kids, Jocelyn, and boys started doing the skater boy thing and they wore the baggy pants and they thought they were all cool. But what it was they were mimicking inmates in jail in prison system, and that was they wear their pants baggy to let other inmates know, hey, I'm available to be your love
That's right. They
friend.
didn't know they didn't know the.
They didn't, but I'm gonna just tell you guys a quick story because I had my wish come true. I've always wanted to see baggy pants, a guy wearing baggy pants. I've always wanted to see it fall when they walk, just fall to
Oh
their
yeah.
ankles. So we were living in California, and I was waiting to turn into the grocery store, and this guy who looked like he was in his 50s, but he had probably a hard life, probably not that old, was wearing baggy pants. And he looked at me and deliberately stepped out so I couldn't turn into the driveway for the grocery store. And the third step he took, his pants fell around his ankles. He almost tripped. So I started honking, pointing, and laughing because that just made my
That's
day.
right.
I'm just sorry. That
That's
just made
right.
my day. I waited so many years to see someone with baggy pants have their pants fall. And it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, I never, because even when you walk, you have to hold them. And I'm like, well, that's what you have a belt for. If you pull them up over your hind part, then maybe.
And who wants to see their
And who
underwear?
wants to see
That's
your
not
underwear?
The
Maggie,
thing is,
in your opinion, seeing
that's
a guy's
actually
underwear, is that attractive?
no. And that was actually put in the dress code for guys that they couldn't do, but it was never enforced because they would just wear a hoodie that covered it.
Yeah.
But do these young men realize that the history of baggy pants is to let someone know they're available to stick it in their butts?
Right. Right. And
Because it's not a gangster look, it's not a tough guy look, it's a I'm gonna be someone's bitch.
oh Lord. But yeah, that's hey, I mean, go for it. It's true. It's true. It's totally true. But yeah, I don't think they cared. I didn't think they still thought it was cool. And then, like Miss Maggie said that they'll wear the hoodies, but your back pockets don't go on the back of your thigh. So we know you're still sagging. Like pull it up. Like what's the point? That's not cute. That's not cool. But then another thing, okay, what you think about the skinny jeans, Miss Maggie?
Because
On men or women?
On men.
I've never really seen guys wear skinny jeans.
No, you have, because your brother, who has no butt, I had to put him in skinny jeans so it wouldn't fall.
Okay, well, that's one thing because Lewis needed pants that weren't just gonna fall.
Right.
Okay. Oh God, because this is for my kids when I'm dead, so he's gonna see this at some point and realize I put this in
It's
there.
all right. They'll have a memory. But yeah, but I didn't well maybe that's just my preference, my style, I would think, because I wasn't fancy of the skinny jeans. I think maybe that was my preference, but I just didn't. It's like wearing tights. So the men tights were the skinny jeans and us women tights were tights. I don't know. It's just that I just
I think it
didn't.
depends on the body style. I think, like with Lewis, it didn't look like skinny jeans on him.
Mhm.
They look like relaxed fit because he was skinny. He really had no butt. It was when he was younger.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like you used to buy them with the button waist that you could adjust the
Oh yeah,
waist,
yeah, yeah.
And when he outgrew those, then we had to buy him skinny jeans for a little bit. It looked like relaxed fit jeans on him
Right.
because he was so thin.
Right, right.
I think a chunkier guy or a guy who's trying to show off his package wearing skinny jeans, I think that's just kind of douchey.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's just weird because that makes me think of like some of these parents that put their toddler in the little halter tops with some tights or something like that. Like it's a lot of creeps out there. And I feel like you
There
have to
is.
protect your little one because they can't protect themselves. And I remember even, and it was bad, my niece Like when we used to go, swimming, even swimming in bathing suits, sometimes I'd be fearful because you don't know who's around or whatever. And I used to make her wear a cover up. I mean, I know that wasn't fair
Now,
for
see,
her.
I didn't go that far.
Yeah,
Now,
I did.
my husband almost got arrested for child pornography.
But
There's a background to this.
yeah,
So Maggie, when she was 2, loved to run around the house wearing her snow boots and her strawberry shortcake crown and nothing else.
Okay.
And we snapped a picture with her turning her back with her finger like this, grinning at us. And he had it on his phone. And that was going to be our blackmail picture for when she got serious about a boy.
That's right.
It was something cute. It was something innocent.
Yeah.
It wasn't, all you saw was her bubble butt and her turning around in her crown.
Yeah.
You didn't see anything. Well, my husband lost his phone on post, and the MPs found it, and they opened it up, and they're trying to go through, and they found this picture.
Gotcha.
And they instructed my husband to delete the picture of his daughter, which was an hilarious picture because it could be construed as child pornography. Was it taken that way? No, we didn't take it that way. We took it for blackmail. When she started dating boys, hey, we have pictures, Maggie, you better behave.
That's right.
That's what we took it for.
Yes.
but it's been deleted.
Has it though? Or
I'm
do I still
hoping
have a
so.
copy somewhere?
No, don't do that to her. But yeah, but I don't know. I've just always been cautious of that type of stuff. So that was, the society. It has ruined me. You know what I mean? Because even like
Yeah.
when my son, I was older when I had my son. So, and I felt like I don't want him to go to daycare until he can talk. And I'm not even going to lie. Some of the first phrases that I taught him, of course, he learned mommy and daddy was, no, 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 don't touch me there. I don't like that. And I'm going to tell my mom. So that was even like one of the first phrases that I taught him, you know what I mean? And that's just because of society, and you don't know people intent. You don't know people. So that was one of the trust issues that I had with people that I'm going to leave my son with, because you just don't know. So I always been very cautious, and like even my great niece and my great nephew, the same thing. And the niece that I made wear a cover up, I hope I didn't ruin her, but she dresses her daughter. She has, let me see, Posey would be 2. She dresses her daughter real nice and real pretty, and like real child ladylike. You know what I mean? She's real cute. But yeah.
And see, my kids, they were all toddlers in Hawaii, and so they used to run around just a diaper because it was hot.
That was at home.
That was at home, and when we took you out, you wore clothes,
That's
and
right.
sometimes you wore boy clothes because, I'm not going to buy a lot of clothes. Sometimes you wore the clothes I originally bought for Lewis,
That's right.
because they're appropriate. They weren't,
That's right.
they're
Multi-purpose.
kind of unisex.
Multi-purpose.
But did
But
you have a bikini when you were a toddler?
I don't know.
Yeah. And you used to lay in the surf and let the surf roll you back and forth on the beach.
And
But it was at a family beach that we took you to.
Yeah.
We always made sure that when we took our kids somewhere, it was appropriate and they were dressed appropriately
That's
for
right.
that.
That's right. Yeah.
And in Arizona, even Alicia and I, we got these crop tops, but we wore tank tops underneath it because, we were like, I was either 6 or 7, so she would have been 8 or 9. It allowed us to wear tank tops that we would have been dress coded for to school because we had the shirt covering it.
Yeah, we taught you how to layer so that way you could still have the crop top that you wanted and the tank top that you wanted, but if you put them together, you wouldn't be dress coded and you'd be covered appropriately. But
that worked for you.
That comes, I think, dress policy, the parents, regardless of the age of the student, it's the parents' responsibility that when they leave the house, they're dressed appropriately to go to school.
That's right. And then that gave you a chance to, put a little of you in it, but still be appropriate for school, So it's a way to do it. I just want everybody to be protected. Everybody, you going to school, you're to learn. Of course, we socialize with our friends. I used to love going to school, because yes, we got to see our friends. I respected my teachers, me and my teachers, all of us, we had a good relationship, but it's because of part of the courses that I took too. I was like in TV broadcasting and journalism. So I wrote in the newspaper. So I had fun classes, so that excited me to want to go to school, and I stayed right across the street from the school. So, my senior year, my goodness, I had a blast because after my first 2 main classes, baby, I could go home and, I could finish my work from home. But, but it only took me one time to get sent home for having the wrong type of shirt on, and my mom, we were like, did you know about this?
Just
Kinda.
a couple of years ago at Alicia's school, it was on the local news here. We had some parents protesting because a girl, female student, went to school and she was sent home. She'd been sent home not once, but before for dress code violation. And so she went back to school. And I don't know if she just, I don't know what happened. If, because kids are sneaky, they'll change their
Yep.
clothes
Mhm.
after they get out of the house. And she was sexually harassed and she was sent home. And the parents were upset because the school said, well, it was because of how she was dressed. It was her fault.
I remember that. And to me, the only reason she should have gotten in trouble was for just breaking the dress code.
But
But
the
I don't
boys
think
that were
that they
harassing
should have
her
told
and
her.
trying to get physical with her, they should have been in trouble for their behavior.
Yeah.
Correct.
But the school
And she
didn't hold the boys
should have,
responsible because she was dressed inappropriately.
No.
And
you
they
know,
took the attitude, if you're going to dress a certain way, you need to expect the consequences.
That's right.
no, that principal, he was definitely one that was very much boys will be boys.
Mhm.
And he was one of my friend's principals at their middle school before he went to the high school. And even they said, yeah, no, the boys never got in trouble for anything that they did against female students because in his eyes, well, that's just boys being
Mhm.
boys. If you teach that behavior is okay for them to do just because they're boys, that's going to lead to more predators being put on the streets and more of this, like where women don't feel safe because what if that person doesn't take no for an answer because they've never been punished for that behavior and never taught, hey, that's not a behavior that you should be having.
That's right.
Right. In this instance, both parties should have been in
That's
trouble.
right. And that's disturbing, especially coming from a male principal. You're supposed to teach the boys that, for one, no means no. And for two, it don't matter how a woman dress, you still can't violate them. And she should have been punished for breaking the dress code. And the boys should be punished for what you said, it was sexual harassment. And that's at a young age. And you didn't get punished for it. So now you're thinking in your mind, hey, I'm a boy, grow up to be men, so it's okay. No, that doesn't
Well,
affect that.
Maggie had an instance when we first moved here when in her middle school where she was at a school assembly. Do you want to explain what happened, Mags?
Yeah, this guy, he leaned back into me, looked at me, asked if I wanted to pretty much have sex with him. And when I glared at him, like, no, he's like, oh, just joking. And throughout the entire assembly, he kept leaning back and brushing up against my upper thigh.
Mm-hmm.
And when we went to the principal didn't really do much and even told the student that it was me who said something. Instead of just saying, hey, another student saw this happening and raised concern.
That's right.
But by telling the student that it was me specifically, that could have put a target on my back
That's right.
had that student decided to go after me for it.
Retaliation.
But what happened when you came home in tears and you told me what happened?
We went to the principal.
And when we went to the principal, it's crowded. It was assembly. I'm sure it was innocent. I said, no, it's not innocent.
Not
No,
when
this
you
is
do
not
it
appropriate.
repeatedly.
And I had to threaten to go to the media and I had to threaten to get a lawsuit and go after his job for allowing a female student in his school to be
That's
victimized
right.
before he took any action against those boys.
That's
And
right.
then that boy ended up being suspended for a week.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't going to do anything until Maggie said something to me. And you know me,
That's
Jocelyn,
right.
I'm not one to not speak out. And I had to go and defend my daughter.
Not
And that's
repeatedly.
inappropriate. If you're running a school, you need to make sure both male and female students are acting appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
At
Absolutely.
home, it's the parents' responsibility. And if my kids get in trouble at school, they're going to get in trouble at home too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's our family rule.
Right. Absolutely.
But so we're going to end this conversation. Maggie, your opinions: dress code policy or school uniforms? When and how long?
School uniforms from middle school to high school.
Okay.
It just makes it easier for kids.
Okay. Jocelyn?
I'm with Miss Maggie. School uniforms from middle school to high school.
All right. So we're all in agreement. Thank you for being on Amy's Opinions. I appreciate you guys doing this with me today.
I had fun.
Yay! And I will see you all later. Thank you.
All right. Y'all have a good day.
Have a good one.